sir, on behalf of the President of the United States Army, and a great commission, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved ones' honorable and faithful service.
I'm going to request that those who can, please rise as we lower the casket.
Mismor David, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot asher yarbitzeni al me menuchot yenachaleni, nafshi yishovev, yanacheni v'magle tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki helech begitz al mavet, Lo irarai ki atai madi, shiftecha umishantecha hema yanachamoni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorirai. Dishanta vashemen roshi, Dishanta vashemen roshi, kosiri vaya, ach tov chesed yirdifuni, kol yamei chayai, v'shaviti, b'veit Adonai, le'orech yamim.
Friends, we have gathered here to pay our respects and to celebrate an extraordinary life. It is at a time such as this, at a time of mourning, at a time of grief, at a time of tearing, that the psalmist wrote the following words. Esa einai el heharim, me'ain yavo izri. I cast my eyes onto the hills, onto the mountains, looking from where would my help come. My help comes from the source of life, maker of heaven and earth. The source of life will not suffer your foot to be moved. The God that now keeps you will not slumber. God that keeps Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The source of life now is your keeper. God is your shade upon your right hand. The sun will not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. May God keep us from all evil. God will keep your soul. May the source of life guard our going out and our coming in, now and forever. We we are here especially thinking about those who are most acutely feeling the loss of a patriarch, of a husband, of a parent, a grandparent. Joan, Jeffrey, whom I assume is joining us, and Richard, as well as Carol and Erica, Nina and Tom and Eloise and Danielle, of course, and Matt, as well as Elizabeth and Michael and Christina and Sean and Carolyn and Ashley and Josh, as well as Neil and Michelle. We think about the grandchildren, Arabella and Brooks and Judith and Meredith and Grayson and Samuel and Oliver and Harry. And we think about William, and of course we think about Samuel and Hattie, the strong characters who were the parents of our beloved Leonard. Every now and again, we come to recognize a life that, if you like, symbolizes the greatest generation, the greatest generation of this country. Here we come to finally say our goodbyes to a person of extraordinary business acumen, smarts, not necessarily formal education, but just sheer intelligence, caring, and grit, drive, ambition, and strength. I met with Richard and the children yesterday, and one of the things that emerged from this meeting was the notion that Leonard had 9 lives. He survived so much. He had lived through so much, including health challenges, and at the same time, it is so significant that to the very end he was a people person. He cared about people, and he was clear and incisive. He knew what was going on to the very end. I will say a few words now just by way of framing what we are about to hear, because I'm going to introduce our speakers in a moment, and we will have 3 family speakers speak, and I promised I would be brief, and I will be. Leonard Horvitz was a people person. It didn't matter how much money people had. He looked for people for who they were. He loved the people who were close to him, and he was loyal to them and loving of them to the very end, and we're going to hear about that. But beyond what we are going to hear about, I want all of you to know and to appreciate. Like his father, he was a go-to person to more than one rabbi. He supported rabbis, he supported leaders in this community with advice, with counsel. He did not appreciate organized religion much, but he was a believer in God, and he was a believer in Judaism. He grew up with Jewish identity. From the beginning, he knew that he was Jewish, and he knew that Judaism was a minority religion. He lived it. And he lived this out throughout his life. His identity, his heritage, his culture were ones he sought to advance. So beyond the causes everyone knows that he supported, Rainbow's Children and Cleveland Clinic and the University School, what we all know that he supported, few people know that not only did he support the Temple Tifereth Israel, but he especially supported it, making a very significant gift for those people who could not pay their dues. And he did not do that for fanfare. He did not do that for recognition. He did that because this was who he was. And he cared for people's ability to participate, everyone. And I think it shows something of his character. I would like to share a few words with you that were sent to me by the Senior Rabbi Emeritus of our temple, Rick Block. And he wrote the following. Leonard cared deeply about the temple, which his family supported philanthropically for generations. He had a close relationship with Jeremy Handler of blessed memory, who was the executive director when I came to the temple and who died tragically young. His generous support was instrumental in the success of the Temple Tomorrow project, and dependably and generously he supported the temple's annual fundraising campaigns. At one point, prior to my arrival, he endowed a fund to subvent a portion of the senior rabbi's position. His care and concern for Joan were very touching, and it was wonderful to join them for a gala celebration of a milestone occasion. I will remember Leonard fondly, and I will be forever grateful for his support and for his counsel. I extend heartfelt condolences to Joan, to Rick, to Danielle, to Matt, and the entire family. The words of our Senior Rabbi Emeritus, Rick Block. At this time, and before Richard speaks, I'm going to invite our cantor to sing a special song, My Way, in honor of Leonard Horvitz.
And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I have lived a life that's full, I've traveled each and every highway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do, and saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried, I've had my fill, my share of losing, and now as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did it all, and may I say, not in a shy way. Oh no, not me, I did it my way. For what is a man, what has he got? If not himself, then he has not to say the things he truly feels, and not heart shows. I took the blows and did it my way.
At this time, if I may, I would like to invite Leonard's son, Richard, to please come and share a number of words with us.
My dad was a complex guy, and out of respect to his values, I wanted this eulogy to be as authentic because he was. There were two songs that summed up my dad. Frank Sinatra's I Did It My Way, which Cantor Sibo just beautifully sang. And to many of you out there, you'll know the other one and why. Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Waters. He was extremely smart with an IQ over 145, had no patience for BS, and was nobody's fool. Like the Sinatra song, he ran his life the way he wanted and didn't particularly care what other people might have thought. He did whatever the blank he wanted, without apology, rarely looking back. And most of the time, the world was better off because of his choices. He was a mix of characteristics. He didn't love everybody, and not everybody loved him, which didn't bother him in the least. But if he cared about you, he was the best friend you could ever have. He was tough as anyone I've ever met, but at the same time was a marshmallow to those he loved. But make no mistake, he really was a very tough guy, particularly when he was younger. He told me how one of his competitors once put a contract out on him. He made a phone call and the guy quickly changed his mind. So he didn't just fake being tough. As Matt told him in the hospital, "Papa, you are a real badass." His ability to withstand pain without complaining was amazing. On the other hand, if this tough guy liked you, he'd do anything for you. If it weren't for COVID, there would be legions of people here paying their respects because of all the people he quietly helped. Although well off financially, my dad was the opposite of a snob. He was most comfortable with real people, working people, particularly those in the construction trades. He hated large groups, big parties, pretentious or phony people, and social big shots. Given his knowledge of the community, such people should have proceeded with caution. He knew every bit of gossip on every person who lived in Cleveland, including their peccadillos and shady financial dealings. He could write a book that would have put Heidi Fleiss's memoirs to shame. My father didn't do normal things that people do to entertain themselves. He hated the idea of, quote, having fun. In fact, he used to say that the last time he had fun was in 1936 for 10 minutes. He was far from a health fanatic. Despite having been captain of the wrestling team at university school, he did no sports and essentially no exercise after the war. He also ate anything he wanted, usually stuff that was bad for him, but still lived to 97. So much for Dr. Roizen. He loved his home in Cleveland, didn't believe in second homes, and hated to travel. To him, the perfect trip is the one that got canceled, except when he took his grandkids. He had a great sense of humor, cracked everyone else up, but I never heard him tell a joke. He was a true patriot. He dropped out of the University of Pennsylvania after 1 year to enlist in the Army, which greatly upset his father, who wanted to get him a relatively cushy officer's commission. My dad would have none of it. He wanted to fight for his country, not be a desk puke. I'd like to read you a letter that we found last night that sums up my father and the greatest generation. This will tell you why they were the greatest generation. It was dated December 8th, I think 1942. It didn't say the date. It was written from his dorm when he was in the dorms at the University of Pennsylvania. It was to his parents. Dear Mother and Dad, I guess you all are excited about the war. It is your second one and probably are able to understand it better than me. I know how you feel about letting your sons get into it, but I have thought about it a lot lately and have definitely decided that I want to enlist in the Marine Force. I have been doing a lot of investigating these past few years and have made my own opinion. I was down to the recruiting station today and find it is necessary for me to obtain your signature before I can get in. I realize that you think I am too young and have never done anything on my own and don't realize the gravity of the situation. I probably never have done anything on my own, but have thought it all over and do realize the gravity and possible consequences of my enlistment. It is only natural that you should be reluctant to letting your son join, but if everyone felt that way, we all would be in a pretty bad way. It is up to everyone to do what I desire, but that unfortunately isn't the situation. There are too many boys who come from well-to-do families who feel that it is up to someone else to do their fighting while they continue their old form of living. I want to fight my own battle and would never feel right if after this war was over, I felt that I had been a slacker. When I left home in September, I was merely heading to school and new experiences that every college boy goes through. But I now find we aren't living in normal times, and it would be unfair to expect that I can continue playing for the next 4 years. We've all been pretty fortunate and have a lot more than most people. A lot more than most people. So it is more our fight than theirs. I have no financial responsibilities. My only responsibility is to my family, and I'm sure that underneath your practical mind and natural tendency to protect your children, you would really want me to fight alongside of all the other fellows in my position. This letter will, of course, be a surprise to you, as I have always acted as a child. But I know now what I want to do, and I have made this choice from sound reasoning, and not out of blowing horns and good-looking uniforms. I want to fight to keep the way of living we all have been blessed with, and could never be happy doing otherwise. As far as college is concerned, I wouldn't miss it, as I am not a student anyhow. I refuse to be another rich man's son and sincerely want to join. Please write me immediately, and I am sure that after you have thought it over, you will see me to be right. Love, Leonard. Actually, that was 1941. He didn't really have hobbies other than his family, particularly his grandkids. He loved all of you. He absolutely endured and spoiled his grandkids, believing that that right was enshrined in both the Constitution and natural law, and would have done the same with his grandkids had he lived longer. He would totally ignore their mothers and my requests to stop buying them presents and slipping them, quote, trip money, believing that it was his God-given right to do so. He loved Joan dearly during their 48 years of marriage. He always took care of her and was her rock. He did everything he could to look after her and make her safe, and she loved him back dearly. Leonard was publicly known for being very philanthropic. He gave lots of money to lots of worthy institutions. He focused on medical institutions, particularly areas that helped kids. But his heart was even more invested in what the public didn't see, namely how he helped individual people in need. Some people collect cars, some collect art. Leonard spent his money helping people. I'll miss my dad greatly. I haven't even begun to accept the loss. I was too busy trying to take care of him. After knowing and loving him for 67 years, it is inconceivable that a force of nature like him is really gone. But as I told one of mine and his dearest friends to try to console her, if I'm lying in bed someday when I'm 87, let alone 97, with two of my grandkids holding my hand, telling me that they love me, I'll know I'm a pretty damn lucky guy.
When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. I'm on your side. Oh, when times get rough, and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down. When you're down and out, when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your part. Oh, when darkness comes and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down, like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down. Sail on, silver girl, sail on by. Your time has come to shine. All your dreams are on their way. See how they shine. Oh, if you need a friend, I'm sailing right behind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind.
I would now like to call on Danielle, the elder granddaughter who is here with us. Bella, are you going to be okay? Good. Okay. So please share her words with us.
Leonard was as much a regular part of my routine as brushing my teeth or taking a shower. Many of my happiest memories include him. I thought about him, worried about him, and laughed about him and at him constantly. As much as I knew this day was coming, I also thought he would be around forever. As Arabella said when I told her he had passed, I just thought he would live to be 100. I spent much of the day he died looking through my phone at photos and videos I had taken of him, my husband, and our kids over the years. There are videos of him rolling Arabella around on his wheeling walker, Brooks playing with and breaking his toy sports cars, which he was surprisingly fine with. One night a few years ago, he showed Arabella how to use his remote control for the fan in his library. He would patiently help her push the buttons to turn it on and off, on and off, on and off, sometimes 20 times in a row. Every time she would visit him, she always went straight for the fan. As impatient as Leonard was in his normal life, he was endlessly patient with my kids. He loved to put Arabella on his ottoman by his recliner, look right at her and say, don't smile," until she started laughing. Brooks worshipped Papa. He loved the excavator scoop in his front yard, and Leonard was always giving him little construction vehicles to play with. He had Papa wrapped around his finger. They always sat next to each other at dinner, and even though Leonard's neurological condition caused him to have a hard time feeling his fingers, Papa loved to feed Brooks bites of dessert off of his fork. When Mike and I moved back to Cleveland 13 years ago, we started going to Papa and Joni's house almost weekly for dinner. I will never forget calling him when Mike proposed. Leonard picked up the phone, and when I told him he was engaged, his concerned response was, "In battle?" 6 years later, I will always remember picking him up with Mike at his office, taking him to lunch, and telling him that we were expecting his first great-grandchild. He literally lit up the restaurant. He asked what the gender was, and when I told him it was a little girl, he got tears in his eyes. And for those who know Leonard, you know that he was a man of few tears. While Leonard earned his reputation as a no-nonsense, old-school type, those closest to him knew his soft spots and the adoration he had for his family. Arabella, know that your great-grandpa adored you and will always love you and be watching over you. Papa used to call periodically and ask if he could take Arabella shopping. Her grandparents know that we have some rules about not excessively buying stuff for her and Brooks, but the rules went out the door for Papa. We would meet him and his nurse at the local toy store, and he would then proceed to tell Arabella to buy everything she wanted while he sat smiling in his wheelchair. Literally, we would leave with a car full of toys to last a year. As much as he loved spoiling his grandchildren, he loved spoiling his great-grandchildren even more. When my mom died, he and Joan took me in for a few weeks while my dad renovated his house. He spoiled the hell out of me, took me to run errands with him so I wasn't stuck alone, and made sure I was okay. I will always be so grateful for this time I had with him. I think the hardest thing for me to overcome with Leonard's passing is the day-to-day interactions and Leonardisms, if you will. His voice was so distinct, and just knowing that he won't be there to pick up the phone after one ring and deliver his unique Leonard greeting, hello, is hard to imagine. He was also prone to ending phone calls abruptly, something that I hear he got from his mother. When he decided he was finished with a conversation, he would just hang up without saying goodbye. When at home, Leonard enjoyed sitting on his favorite recliner in his library, watching the news, and making spontaneous purchases from telemarketers and infomercials. He once ordered 17 air fryers for his nurses and family. In his younger years, he often smelled of pipe smoke, and we would go for walks in the trails through his ravine and shoot BB guns off his balcony. He enjoyed grilled cheese with honey butter, lemonade, stewed tomatoes, and always had a drawer full of stale black licorice for anyone who stopped over. He adored marshmallow peeps, Big League Chew, and crystallized ginger. Every time I was at the grocery store around Easter, I would grab him a pack of peeps. To me, they are the most vile candy, but Leonard adored them. He enjoyed the same diet as his great-grandchildren, and we rarely ever saw him eat a vegetable. His favorite was coconut cake, and we always made sure he had it for each and every birthday. But we were always reminded that it never came close to being as good as the one Edith Wilson used to make. I will be forever grateful for the many years I had with Papa. I am also so thankful that I was able to spend his last few days by his side. I know he was probably pissed at me for seeing him in that state, as he was always so protective of me, but I am so happy he was surrounded by those who loved him during his final days. I needed to hear him tell me he loved me one last time and scream, "Danny," in his pissed off voice.
Thank you very much, Danielle. Thank you for this. Matt, I'd like to invite you up. Thank you.
Thank you. My grandfather was and will always be my hero and best friend. I did not understand the full meaning of friendship at the age of 5, but I always knew that we had an ineffable bond with each other. My goal in life was to be just like my papa. I am blessed with my grandfather's genetics, good and bad. I'm stocky, have a 17-inch neck, I'm stubborn as hell, have a temper, and I rarely have shame about saying whatever I want. Papa and I are cut from the same cloth. When people say, "Oh, Matt, you're just like your grandfather," it's rarely a compliment. Well, on weekends, many of my friends were immersed in video games or at sports tournaments. I spent virtually every Saturday of my childhood with Papa. Those were some of the best days of my life. Papa certainly knew how to spoil and have fun with his grandkids, often to my parents' displeasure, as my dad mentioned. On my typical Saturday morning drop-off ritual, my dad and or mom would warn him not to give me candy before lunch and not to buy me more toys, especially toy trains. Within 5 minutes of my folks leaving the driveway, Pop and I would be chowing down on a box of Good and Plenty, and driving to the train store in downtown Cleveland to buy another Lionel train engine. There may or may not have been a stop for a Rally's hamburger right before he dropped me off for my nutritious lunch waiting at home. A typical Saturday with Papa often included harmless kids' activities, such as shooting pellet guns at raccoons, pouring fox urine and rat poison around the outside of his house, or chewing a pack of beech nut tobacco. I was 7. My grandfather would give me a wad of tobacco to put in my cheek, smirk, tell me not to swallow it, and then give a 30-second countdown before I was vomiting in the bathroom. He chuckled every single time, and I kept coming back for more. Through high school, college, and my time in Colorado, I made sure to stay in touch with my pal Papa every day. I call him on the way to a party, to pick up a date, or before a test. That's what you do with a best friend. My grandfather was the most caring person in my life. After my mother died, he always wanted to make sure I was hanging in there. Especially I went off across the country to school in Claremont, California. It should come as no surprise that he really cared about the girls I was dating, how they treated me, and knowing Leonard, how attractive they were, and if they were blonde. He did not like a few of my flings and made that clear that 5 times a day he'd leave me a furious message saying, "Matthew, I need to talk more to you about these broads you've been taking out." Again, this is the thing a good buddy says, not your 90-year-old grandfather. He is now blessed with a beautiful granddaughter-in-law and 2 great-grandchildren. Fortunately, my girls have my wife's beautiful looks, but as genetics go, many of my papa's and my stubborn personality traits. I guess they'll carry our torch. When I was deciding where the next chapter of life would take me this past year, our move back home to Cleveland was a no-brainer. It brought me closer to my roots, our family business, and my buddy Papa. I was fortunate enough to go to the office every day with my grandfather until this spring. Nothing made me and him prouder than waltzing into work with one of the 500 Brooks Brothers ties he gave me. The company would have filed for bankruptcy a lot sooner if it wasn't for him. Papa, you define altruism. You've never cared where people come from or what they look like, so long as they'd shoot you straight, you could bust their chops and make them laugh. You were the most loyal man one could meet. If you liked someone, they were in. If you didn't, they would know it immediately and all hell would break loose. You were the only guy I know who could have an hour conversation with a phone solicitor and know their kids' names by the end of the call. Usually after talking to you, that person would either get a bonus or quit their job. Papa, I love you. You are the most selfless and caring man that a grandson could ask for. In 97, you are and will always be my hero, mentor, and best friend. I am glad I got to spend the last week by your side until the final moments. You will always be a legend, whether here on earth or upstairs. We could hopefully pick up where we left off when my time comes too. I love you.
Friends, as you're able, I invite you to rise now for the memorial prayer, El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, שוכן במרומים, עמסי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפך השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוכר הרקיע מסעירים. את נשמת יקירנו, שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן, דרכי מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים אסתירהו, בסתר כנפך לעולמים, ותצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. O merciful God, who dwells on high, who is full of compassion, grant perfect peace beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament. To our dear departed, who has gone to his eternal home, May his soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life, and grant that his memory inspire all of us to noble and consecrated living. And to this we say,
Amen.
Amen.
At this time, I would like, especially for members of the family, here for you, the assembled, to take out your cards with a Kaddish on them, and we will recite the Kaddish together. It is important to me that, we follow together in the Kaddish, so I will recite it slowly so that you are able to recite the words with me. Please join me. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, ve'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomeichon ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן, יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא, ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום. עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו Amen. May the source of peace, comfort, and healing send peace, comfort, and healing to us, to all who mourn, and let us together say, Amen. At this time, I would like to invite members of the close family to do the last act of kindness to Leonard and to cast some soil on the casket.
Once you have placed your earth on the grave, you may return back to your car. This concludes our Zoom of the service. Thank you for being part of this.
For 7 days, right?
Can I take I'll get your information.
Yeah, you'll have to go.
Okay.
You're a good judge of character. I'll give it all. Thank you. Memorial. Thank you. As soon as I get those acknowledgements, very quickly.
Probably not collecting them.
Oh, thank you. We can just send someone else out. Bring them to the house. We'll get them. Okay.
You did a nice job.
So sorry, John.
Prepare yourself to.
No, Jay, no.